Hi everybody, welcome to my first ever video on YouTube. Apologies for the poor audio, but I am using a headset and not a professional microphone to do this. I wanted to create a video as I've seen on various blogs and forums, people asking about how to create a Blender file to export with multiple animations so that it shows up as different scenes within PowerPoint. Some people seem to know how to do this, but nobody has ever given a tutorial or a step-by-step on how to do this. So I decided to create one. So effectively what we have here is a cube, a full 3D object. I created a couple of buttons just to indicate that you can switch between the various different scenes and the different animations. And for example, if I go to scene 2, it will play the second animation. Right, so let's get to Blender and to get started, and I'll show you how I've created this. So in order to show you in Blender, we're going to use the default scene over here. So I just went new, created a new scene, and we're going to animate this block as you saw within the PowerPoint presentation. So what I had there was this cube with 3 sides separated from the cube. And in order to do that, we're going to go into edit mode by hitting tab. We're going to select 3 on the keyboard so that we have a face selection. I'm going to select the top one, right click, and then say separate, and separate by selection. And this will create in our scene collection a complete new object. And we're going to rename that to top. I'm going to do the same with the front, separate selection, rename that to front, select the side over here, separate by selection, and rename that to side. Right, we're going to hit tab again to go back to object mode. And now we have 3 separate objects over here that we can now animate. Now in Blender, if you typically do an animation, you would select an object and give it a keyframe, then move in your timeline, let's say to 40, move the object somewhere. So let's say I'm going to grab this on the Z axis, and I would hit another keyframe. And that would then animate from the point, from the original point to where you've obviously moved it. The thing is, this does not work with PowerPoint. So with PowerPoint, there's a different process. So if you're doing animations or if you already created animations, you are unfortunately going to have to do it over. Right, so let's get to the process on how to do this within PowerPoint. Now in PowerPoint, if I want to animate these, you have to add a armature. And to do that, we're going to hit Shift A to add a armature into the scene. Now the armature you can see sticking out the top over there. Currently it is within my cube. You can see it over there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have it selected and we're just going to grab it and then move it to the top on the Z axis. And we're going to rename this to armature top. Now what I want to do is in my scene, I want this face to flip open like it's a box, and I want it to be kind of on a hinge on the side over here. And we're going to do that with the armature. Now if I select the armature, you'll see right below it there's a little yellow dot. That is the origin point of this armature object. I want that little yellow dot to be on the side over here. So to do that, I'm going to go to the top view. I'm going to grab the armature and I'm going to grab it on the x-axis. So it moves literally on the same position in the left. And it looks more or less like it's on the line. I'm going to then hit 1 to switch to the side view. I'm going to move it so that it is literally on that little corner over there. Maybe zoom in a little bit more just to make sure, but it doesn't have to be perfect, but here you go. Okay, you can see it's still in the middle of the object and it's literally now on the side. Okay, so that's the first step. We're going to do that obviously for all the sides, but before we move on, I want to parent this object now to the armature. In order to do that, select it. You can also select it in the scene collection over here. Then hold Shift and select the armature. Then hit Control plus P. And you'll see it's set parent to, and we want to use this with automatic weights over here. Right, now you can see everything is moved into armature.top. In order to test whether it was parented properly, if you select the armature and I hit G for grab, if you move it around, you'll see that the object now moves with it. We're now going to do the same with the front. So again, I'm going to say Shift A to add a new armature. I'm going to grab it on the X and pull it forward. I'm going to rotate it on the Y 90 degrees so it faces my front object. I'm going to grab it and just move it so it then just touches the face plane over here. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the one view over here. And this one we want to flip at the bottom. So I'm going to grab it on the Z and then move it down. And if we then move in a little bit, sorry, if we zoom in a little bit, I'm going to grab this and just move it to that corner. Good. And then we're going to do the same thing. So select the front object, hold Shift, select the armature, Control plus P, and parent it with automatic weights. Right, so let's do the left-hand side, Shift A, add an armature, grab it on the Y, move it to the side. Sorry, I forgot to rename this one. So I'm going to select this just so that there is no confusion. We're going to call that armature front. And the new one that we just created, we are going to call armature.side. Okay, so let's go ahead and rotate this on the X-axis this time, 90 degrees. Grab it on the Y and move it until it touches our face. I'm going to go to one view over here, and we're just going to grab it on the Z. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Let's grab the armature this time. Go Z, and then just pull it so it's more or less on the line over there. All right, so let's again parent it. So select the object, select the armature, Control plus P with automatic weights. And there we go. So now we've got all three created. In order now to do the animation, we need to go into pose mode. And if you don't see pose mode over here, make sure that you have a armature selected and then it will show up. But we want all three of them in pose mode. So quite simple, just go to your collection on the side here, select all three of them and say select hierarchy so that you select everything also inside these armatures. And then we're going to switch to pose mode. Okay, so let's move this bar up again at the bottom over here. And here I want to switch to my dope sheet. Now you'll see on the left there's a little clock here. You can click on that and you have all the options to switch. So I'm going to go to dope sheet. And once you're in the dope sheet, make sure here that you select the action editor. Okay. So again, we have our time frame at the bottom over here. So I'm going to first select all three of them. So click on one, hold Shift, and click on the other armatures. And this is obviously our neutral position. So I'm going to hit I to add a keyframe for the neutral position on all three of them. And now you'll also notice that here it actually created an action item for all three of these armatures. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and rename them. My first action I'm going to do is going to be a slide. Actually, let's do the flip first. So I'm going to say this is going to be a flip action. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm just going to rename all of them so that they have the same indication of what action it will do. So that's the top one's already done. Let's select the front one. There we go. So all three of them are now flip. And now we're going to go ahead and animate this. So I'm going to go to around about 20 here. And I want to do again the same frame. I want it to stay in that position at least for 20 frames before it starts the animation. So I'm going to select all three of them and just hit I again. If you see something like this, it means the position or the object itself remained exactly the same. So it's the same. I could have just copied that point to here as well. Okay, then we're going to move on to something about, let's say 60, maybe a little bit less. Let's do 50. And I'm going to animate this. I'm going to start with the top one. This one I want to flip open like a lid completely 180 degrees. So I'm going to say, rotate this for me on the y-axis 180. You can just type in 180. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to then hit I Now, make 100% sure that your mouse or your cursor is in the viewport over here, not on the sides. Otherwise, you will not be able to insert a keyframe. So when inserting the keyframe, make sure your mouse is over here. Right. We're then going to move on a little bit. So let's say to 80 over here. Right. So at 80, we want the box to be closed again. So with my time indicator over here, I am just going to select one of the previous points, hit Control C to copy it, and then Control V, and it'll paste that coordinates over here. And you can see obviously that is the neutral position. Right, and we can kind of test it quickly just to make sure that it flips open the right way around and doesn't swing the other way. Otherwise, you might have to use a negative minus 180. Right, and then we wanted to maybe stay close again for a little bit before it will start again. In PowerPoint, it will just play continuously. So over here, we're going to again copy the same position. So you'll see the little yellow line indicating it's going to stay the same. So it'll be 20 frames, then do the animation, 20 frames, and then 20 frames, and then play the animation. If you want it shorter, obviously you can then just adjust it. Right, and that's the top one then done. So let's go to the front one, do exactly the same thing. All right, so again, we're going to go to 50 over here. On the front one, we wanted to flip just 90 degrees. So we're going to say rotate on the Y 90 degrees, hit enter, insert a keyframe. And then what we can actually do, because these two are exactly the same, we can literally go to where we want this. So let's go to 80 and just copy these two. There we go. Go to the side one, do the same thing. So move up to 50 over here. Rotate this time on the X 90 degrees. Hit a keyframe, move to 80, and copy and paste. And there we go. There's our first flip action completed. What we now have to do is select any of them. You can start in any order, it doesn't really matter. So let's say start at the front. You have an option here to say push it down. I'm going to do that. You'll see we then go back to a new animation. Going to select the other one, push it down, select this one, and push it down. And now we want to do another animation, which is going to be our second scene within PowerPoint. So for this one, we wanted to slide open. So I'm going to do the same thing. First, I'm going to select all three of them. And I'm going to hit I, so it inserts again a keyframe. And again, it's created a new action for us. So we're going to call this one slide. And I'm going to copy that and just make sure that all of them have the same action name. Okay. The naming is not so important. This has nothing to do with it. It is nothing to do with the scene, that is. This is all just for ease of use when you are selecting your different actions. Okay, so let's do the same thing. I'm going to go again to 20, and here I want everything to be the same. So again, we're just going to copy it, go to this one, copy it, go to this one, and copy it. All right. That seems to be good. So let's go to 50 again. And at 50, we now want this to slide open. So for the top one, we're going to grab it on the Z-axis. Just pull it up slightly, something like that. Hit a frame. And then again, we're going to do the same as earlier. Copy these two to the end. Sorry, I only selected one. We'll just do that. You can see it slides up and down. Do the same with the front one. Go to 50, grab it on the X-axis, slide it a little bit forward, give it a keyframe, go to 80, and we'll just copy the first two. Go to the side one, make sure we are on 50, grab it on the Y, move it a little bit forward, give it a keyframe, go to 80, and paste it. Right, and there's our second animation is now completed. Again, select them, just push them down, push it down, and push it down. Okay, so that's our two scenes. Now, in order to edit the scenes or what order you want the scenes to be in, we're going to go back to the bottom left here, and we're going to select our nonlinear animation. And this is where we push down the various actions. So there we can see the slide one is the first one. and the flip is going to be the second scene. If you want it the other way around, you can literally go here and say in which order, push it up or down. Everything that's in the same slot would be part of the same animation. So if you add more objects, etc., that's how you then do that. And everything obviously in the second slot would be part of the same animation over here. And that's literally it. That's all we require for PowerPoint. So now we can go in and export this. But before I do that, I'm going to go back to my object mode. I just want to change the material of this cube because white in PowerPoint is very saturated and you'll obviously not be able to see this. Now, all these make use of the same material because it was originally same part of the same cube. So I'm going to go in here and just select, let's say, a nice red or dark red color. It will stand out a little bit more within PowerPoint. Right, and that's it. You can see all of them now are red over here. Okay, let's also make sure I'm going to just hit insert or 0 on my numpad to see the camera view. And if you want to maybe zoom it out, you can hit N for the options over here. Under view, it's going to click these two because then I can use my mouse scroller to zoom in and out a little bit. And there we go. That should be good. We'll keep it like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and export this. So I'm going to go File, Export. We're going to pick the bottom one, the GLB file over here. You would see animation over here. You don't have to change anything. You can keep it on defaults, but just to make sure that it is ticked. And we're going to go ahead and export this. I'm going to put it in downloads, and I am just going to call this Blender 3D. Let's go ahead and export that. And that's it for Blender. Let's go back to PowerPoint. Right, so in PowerPoint, we have a blank presentation over here. We can go ahead and click on Insert, 3D Models, and then browse this device. We can select our newly created object with its animations, and we're going to hit Insert. Right, and there's our object. By default, you'll see it will play the first scene, which is the one flipping open over here. To switch between our scenes, if you have the 3D model selected and you make sure you are under the 3D model section, you have a little button here, of course, for your various scenes. Okay, so let's say we wanted to make that part of the presentation so that if you click on a button, it goes to that scene. So for that, I'm going to create another, or let's duplicate this one. So I'm literally going to say Control C, Control V. So I have another slide. So on the first one, we want to play scene 1. So I'm going to select the object and here select scene 1. And on the second one, we obviously want to continue with scene 2 over there. I'm going to add another slide. So let's again duplicate this slide. And on this slide, I don't want it to do anything. So I'm going to pause it. I'm going to pause it over here where it's not playing any animation. And I'm going to make sure under my scenes that it does nothing. So it does not play the animation. It's literally just the 3D cube. Now, in order to transition nicely between my different scenes, I'm going to enable the transition for morph on all these slides. And since they're all the same object, it will morph nicely between the different rotations, animations, etc. So for this one, let's start with the first one. And I'm going to just rotate it maybe something like that in a nice position. We'll add it to something like that. On this one, let's say I want to be a little bit more of an overhead opening up. Maybe put it something like that. And maybe we'll make it a little bit smaller so it just fits in, of course. Something like that. And on this one, where it just slides open, that's actually fairly good, but I'll make it a little bit like that. And maybe we want to see inside the box a bit more. You can even move off screen with some of these slides. And we'll just move it down a little bit, something like that. Okay, So over here, we're going to add some buttons in order to transition between our different scenes. So we'll add something like that. So let's go ahead and say I want to insert a shape. I will pick the one with the rounded corners to make our buttons. And we want to make it a little bit nicer. So something with a gradient fill. So I'm just going to right click on it and say format the shape. We'll go to fill and say we want to do a gradient fill. And that's actually fairly good. We'll just keep it like that. And let's give it a name as well. So this is going to be my scene 1. And we'll just make the size a bit bigger of the font over here. Maybe make it bold as well. Okay, then we're going to copy this one. So we have then at the bottom here our scene 2. We'll just change that. Grab both of them. We'll just align it nicely. Actually, this one we can move maybe a little bit up. Okay, so when we click on this button, we want it to go to scene 1 slide. When we click on this one, we want to go to scene 2. And then maybe we also want a button for coming back over here. So let's say this is going to be called back. And we'll make it smaller. Just put it in the top over here. And we're going to copy this and also put it over there. Okay, so let's first edit our action. Select scene 1 here. To do that, if you go back to insert, you have an option over here for a action. So we're going to select action and say that this is going to be a hyperlink. So when we click on it, we want to go to a specific slide. And in this case, we want to go to slide 2 over here. Then we're going to select the bottom one and we're going to do the same thing, action. Again, we want to go to a specific slide, and then in this case, slide 3. And on the back button, we're going to add an action. And that we also want to go to a specific slide, in this case, back to slide 1. In fact, let me just copy that one. Then it already contains the action, and we'll just paste that back in there. Right, let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to hit F5 over here to make it full screen. So we have our cube, we have our 2 buttons. If I click on scene 1, it will start playing the scene 1 animation. I can hit back to go to the original page, and we can hit scene 2 to then play the second scene. And back again to our main page. And there you go. That's how you create it. Thank you for watching the video. If you found it interesting, hit a like over there. Maybe I'll do some more in the future. So if you want to stick around and see if I produce more, you're more than welcome to subscribe as well. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.